For 6 years, I supported my parents. I paid their mortgage, their car loans, their health insurance, their utilities. I thought I was being a good son doing what family does. I believed that honoring the people who raised me meant making sure they were comfortable, especially after they struggled financially throughout my childhood. But on my mother's 60th birthday party, everything I believed about family and unconditional love shattered in one moment. Before we get into what happened that night, let me know in the comments where you are watching this from. If you have ever felt taken for granted by the people you love most, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, because you will not believe what my mother said to me in front of 80 guests that changed my entire life forever. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona. My parents worked hard but always struggled with money. My father spent his days doing construction work, coming home with aching joints and exhausted eyes. My mother worked as a part-time administrative assistant at a dental office, trying to balance bringing in income with managing our household. They gave me everything they could manage. They pushed me to study hard, told me education was my ticket to a better life. And I believed them. I excelled in school. I stayed up late doing homework while other kids hung out at the mall. I joined academic clubs, participated in science fairs, applied to every scholarship I could find. When acceptance letters arrived during my senior year of high school, my parents cried with joy. I got into Arizona State University with a scholarship that covered most of my tuition. I chose to major in computer science because I was good with technology, and the career prospects looked solid. College was intense. I worked part-time at the campus library while taking a full course load. I graduated with honors at 22 years old. 2 months later, I landed a job at a tech company in Austin, Texas. The starting salary was $75,000 a year. I remember calling my parents with the news. My mother screamed with happiness. My father told everyone at his construction site that his son was going to be a big shot in computers. 6 years ago, when I was 22 and had just started my new job in Austin, my parents called me one evening. I could hear the stress in my father's voice immediately. He told me they were facing serious financial problems. His construction work had slowed down significantly because of health issues. His knees were bad from decades of manual labor. His back gave him constant pain. He could not work the long hours anymore, and the company had reduced his shifts. My mother could not work full hours either. Arthritis in her hands made typing difficult and painful. Their income had dropped by more than half. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. The bank had sent foreclosure notices. They were terrified of losing the house, the only home I'd ever known. I did not think twice. I immediately offered to help. I told them I would cover the mortgage until they got back on their feet. The mortgage payment was $1,800 every month. It felt like a lot at the time, but I was making decent money and living modestly in Austin. I could handle it, but it did not stop at the mortgage. A few months later, my father called about the car payments. They had 2 vehicles, both with monthly loans. He said they might have to let the cars go. I could not imagine my parents without transportation, especially with my father's health issues requiring regular doctor visits. So I added the car payments to my monthly support. 2 cars totaled $650 per month. Then came health insurance. My father's construction company insurance was tied to his hours, and with reduced shifts, they lost coverage. Private insurance for 2 people in their 50s was expensive, $400 monthly. I added it to the list. Then utilities, then random expenses that came up. In total, I was sending approximately $3,400 home every month on top of managing my own expenses in Austin. At first, I felt good about it. I felt like I was finally giving back to the people who sacrificed for me. I was making their lives easier after years of watching them struggle. My parents seemed grateful initially. They would call me just to thank me. My mother would tell me I was the best son any parent could ask for. My father said he was proud of the man I had become. I worked hard at my job. I got promotions. By my 3rd year, my salary had increased to $120,000. The financial support I was providing was manageable. I lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment in Austin. I drove a used Honda Civic I had bought in college. I saved what I could, but my priority was making sure my parents were comfortable. I believed this was what family meant, taking care of each other, being there when someone needed help. But somewhere around year 3 of providing this support, Things started feeling different. The phone calls from my parents changed. They became less about connection and more about requests. My mother would call asking for extra money for things beyond the regular bills. Home repairs that suddenly needed doing. New furniture because the old couch was worn out. Money for a vacation trip because they needed to relax and enjoy life. My father stopped looking for work entirely. He seemed content to retire early at 58 years old. When I suggested he could maybe find something part-time that was not physically demanding, he got defensive. He said he had worked his whole life and deserved a break. My mother agreed with him. I noticed their lifestyle was improving while mine stayed the same. When I visited home for Christmas during year 3, I walked into their house and saw a brand new 75-inch television mounted on the wall, new leather furniture in the living room, a fancy espresso machine in the kitchen that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. They were eating out frequently based on the photos they posted on social media. My mother had gotten her nails done professionally. My father bought expensive power tools for hobbies. I felt uncomfortable seeing all this, but I did not say anything. I told myself they deserved to enjoy life after years of struggling. They had given me a good childhood despite their financial stress. If my money could help them finally relax and be happy, was that not a good thing? I pushed down the weird feeling in my gut that something was off about this arrangement. By year 5, the requests had shifted into demands. My mother called one afternoon and told me she and my father wanted to take a vacation to Hawaii. She had already looked at resorts and flights. The total cost would be around $6,000. I explained that I could not afford that on top of the regular monthly support. I had been trying to save for a down payment on a house. I was 27 years old and still living in a rental apartment because every extra dollar went to Phoenix. My mother got upset. Her voice turned cold. She said things like, "After everything we did for you, and we raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head, and this is the least you can do." She made me feel guilty for even hesitating. I ended up compromising and sending $3,000, half of what they wanted. She accepted it but seemed disappointed. My younger sister Layla never contributed financially to our parents. She was a teacher making about $45,000 a year. She had her own family to support, a husband and 2 young kids. I understood she was in a different financial position, but somehow all the expectations fell on me. I was the successful one, the one who had made it. Therefore, I was the one who should carry the financial burden. When I suggested to my parents that they could look into part-time work or apply for government assistance programs they might qualify for, my mother got offended. She said I was being selfish and ungrateful. She reminded me that I made plenty of money and should be happy to help my family. My father stayed quiet during these conversations, but I could tell from his expressions that he agreed with my mother. The silence felt like approval. I started feeling resentful. The weight of the financial obligation was not just about money anymore. It was about the lack of appreciation, the growing entitlement, the way my sacrifices had become expected rather than valued. But I pushed these feelings down. I convinced myself I was just stressed from work, that I was being selfish for even thinking this way. Then came the birthday. My mother's 60th birthday was approaching in March. She called me 2 months in advance with detailed plans. She wanted a big celebration at a nice venue with all her friends and extended family. She had already scouted locations and decided on a country club in Scottsdale. The venue rental alone was $3,000. She expected me to pay for everything, including catering for approximately 80 guests. The estimated total cost was around $8,000. I was shocked when she told me this. $8,000 for one party. I had been carefully saving money, finally building up a fund for a house down payment. This party would wipe out a significant chunk of those savings. I asked her if we could do something smaller, maybe a family dinner at a nice restaurant, something more intimate and meaningful. My mother got upset. She said she only turned 60 once. This was a milestone. She deserved to celebrate properly. She implied that if I really loved her, money would not matter. She made me feel like I was being cheap and uncaring for even suggesting an alternative. I agreed to pay for the party. I told myself it was a milestone birthday, and I should do this for her. I spent weeks helping coordinate with vendors, all via phone calls from Austin since I was working full-time. I arranged the catering, confirmed the band, ordered the cake, handled the deposits. I flew home to Phoenix 3 days before the party to help with final preparations. When I arrived, I discovered my mother had made changes without telling me. She had upgraded the bar service from beer and wine only to a premium open bar with top-shelf liquor. That added $2,000. She had switched from the DJ I had booked to a live band she preferred. That added another $1,500. The total cost had jumped to over $12,000, and she had not consulted me about any of it. When I expressed concern about the increased cost, she dismissed me with a wave of her hand. She said, "You will figure it out, you always do." Like my ability to earn money made it inexhaustible. Like my bank account was infinite. I felt sick, but paid the deposits because the vendors needed confirmation, and the party was in 2 days. The day of the party arrived. I woke up that Saturday morning at my parents' house feeling anxious in a way I could not quite explain. Something felt heavy in my chest. I spent the morning running last-minute errands for my mother. She kept remembering things she needed. I drove across Phoenix, picking up the cake from the specialty bakery, extra decorations from the party store, her special dress from the dry cleaners. My mother was stressed all morning, snapping at everyone who crossed her path. My father pulled me aside at one point and said quietly, "Just do what she wants, it is easier that way." That sentence bothered me more than it should have. My sister Layla arrived around noon with her husband and 2 kids. She hugged me tightly in the driveway. She thanked me for taking care of everything as usual. There was something resigned in her tone, like this burden falling on me was simply the natural order of things. We drove separately to the country club to help set up while my mother got ready at home. The venue looked beautiful, I had to admit. The decorations were elegant. The catering staff was professional. The live band was setting up their equipment. Everything was coming together. My mother arrived at 5:30, an hour before guests were due. She walked through the space, inspecting everything with a critical eye. When she finally smiled and said it looked perfect, I felt a brief moment of relief. Guests started arriving at 6 in the evening. Friends, relatives, neighbors, co-workers. The venue filled with noise and laughter. My mother was in her element, greeting everyone, accepting compliments on her dress, her hair, the beautiful party. She introduced me to people as my successful son who works in computers in Texas. I smiled and shook hands and made polite conversation. I noticed my mother was drinking champagne quickly. By 8 o'clock in the evening, she was visibly tipsy. Her voice was louder. Her gestures were more animated. She was laughing too hard at things that were not that funny. I felt a growing sense of unease, but told myself it was her birthday, she was allowed to let loose and have fun. Around 8:30, my mother gathered everyone's attention for a speech. She stood near the band stage with a microphone. The room quieted down. She thanked everyone for coming to celebrate with her. She talked about her life growing up in Arizona, meeting my father, building a family. She mentioned Layla and how proud she was of her beautiful grandchildren. Her eyes got teary talking about being a grandmother. Then she turned to talk about me. Her tone changed slightly. It was subtle at first. She said she was proud I was successful in my career. But then she added, "Even though he is still not married at 28, no wife, no grandchildren from him yet." People laughed uncomfortably. I felt my face get hot. I forced a smile and looked down at my drink. My mother continued talking, had a few more sips of champagne, thanked everyone again. The speech ended and music resumed. I tried to shake off the comment. I told myself it was just typical parent stuff, wishing their kids were settled down. But it stung. It felt dismissive of everything I had accomplished, everything I had sacrificed. I was putting her entire lifestyle on my credit card, and she was complaining that I had not produced grandchildren yet. The party continued. People danced. The food was served, and everyone said it was delicious. I tried to enjoy myself, but I felt disconnected from the celebration. I stood near the bar talking with my cousin about his new job, trying to focus on the conversation and not the growing knot in my stomach. Around 10 o'clock in the evening, I was mid-conversation when my mother approached. She was clearly very drunk now. Her eyes were glassy. She was unsteady on her feet. She interrupted my conversation and started loudly asking me when I was going to settle down and give her grandchildren. My cousin looked uncomfortable and excused himself quickly. I said politely, "Mom, I am focused on my career right now. We can talk about this another time." Her expression darkened. Her mouth formed a tight line. she said. You are 28 years old, Ahmad. What are you waiting for? Your sister already has 2 children. What is wrong with you? I felt anger flare but kept my voice calm. Mom, you have had a lot to drink. Can we please talk about this later somewhere private? She raised her voice. No, we will talk about it now. I do everything for you. I raised you, and you cannot even give me 1 grandchild. People were starting to watch. Conversations around us had stopped. I felt the eyes of 80 guests turning toward us. I said quietly, Mom, let us go outside and talk. I gently touched her elbow to guide her toward the exit. She jerked her arm away violently. She screamed, Do not touch me. The entire venue went silent. The band stopped playing. Everyone was staring. I stood there frozen, my hand still extended from where she had pulled away. My mother's face was red and twisted with anger. She started yelling, You think you are so special because you have money. You think you are better than us. Better than your family. I tried to speak. Mom, I do not think that at all. I just wanted to help you. She cut me off. Help you think paying for things is helping you are cold, Ahmad. You are empty. All you do is work, work, work. No wife, no life, no heart. Just throwing money at problems like that fixes anything. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I could not breathe properly. My father rushed over and tried to intervene. Honey, that is enough. You have had too much to drink. My mother turned on him. Do not defend him, Robert. Do not you dare defend him. She turned back to me. Her eyes were blazing, but her voice suddenly became cold and clear despite all the alcohol. She said, You know what, Ahmad? I am done. You are not the son I raised. The son I raised would care about family, about carrying on our name, about what really matters. Instead, I got this workaholic robot who thinks money solves everything. I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I held them back. I could not cry in front of 80 people. I tried one more time. My voice came out shaky. Mom, please. You do not mean this. She stepped closer to me. She spoke in a harsh whisper that still somehow carried across the silent room. You are no longer my son. I stood completely frozen. The entire venue was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Layla rushed over from where she had been standing with her kids. Mom, stop. You are drunk. You do not mean that. My mother ignored her completely. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her steps were surprisingly steady for someone who had been stumbling moments before. My father looked at me with an expression I could not read. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was agreement with what my mother had just said. I did not know. Then he followed my mother out of the venue. Guests started whispering. The noise in the room built back up slowly. People were looking at me with mixtures of pity, curiosity, and discomfort. Layla hugged me tight. She was crying. She said, Ahmad, I am so sorry. She will calm down tomorrow. She is just drunk. She does not mean any of it. But I knew it was deeper than alcohol. Drunk words are sober thoughts, they say. My mother had revealed what she really thought of me. That I was a disappointment. That my success meant nothing without a wife and kids. That I was cold and empty. That I was no longer her son. I stayed at the party for another 20 minutes because leaving immediately would have made the scene even worse. I made small talk with relatives who approached me carefully, tiptoeing around what had just happened. Then I quietly slipped out. I got in my rental car and drove away from the country club. I drove back to my parents' house where I had been staying. I packed my bags immediately, shoving clothes and toiletries into my suitcase without folding anything. I could not stay there. I booked a hotel room on my phone and drove across Phoenix to a Marriott near the airport. I lay awake in that hotel room until 4 o'clock in the morning. I kept replaying everything. The words she said, the look on her face, the silence of 80 people watching my humiliation. I kept hearing her voice saying, You are no longer my son, over and over in my head. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made over the past 6 years. The house I could have bought years ago instead of renting. The relationships I had neglected because I was always working overtime to send money home. The vacations I never took because I was too focused on making sure my parents were comfortable. The promotions I chased not for myself, but to increase my ability to support them. And for what to be told, I was cold and empty. To be disowned at a birthday party, I had paid $12,000 to throw. By sunrise, something had shifted inside me. I felt strangely calm, clear-headed in a way I had not felt in years. I realized I had been enabling their entitlement. They had gotten comfortable living off my hard work while contributing nothing themselves. My mother's cruel words had actually revealed the truth of our relationship. They did not appreciate me as a son. They valued me as a resource, a bank account they could draw from. The disownment was painful, but it was also freeing in a strange way. If I was not their son anymore, then I had no obligation to keep supporting them financially. She had severed the relationship. I did not do it. She did. I opened my laptop right there in the hotel room at sunrise. I started making a detailed list of every financial account, service, and payment that was connected to my parents. Everything I was paying for, everything they relied on. If they wanted to cut me off emotionally, I would cut them off financially. It was only fair. I flew back to Austin Sunday evening. Monday morning at 9 o'clock sharp, I started making calls. I had a list in front of me and I worked through it, systematically checking off each item as I completed it. First call was to the mortgage company. I spoke to a customer service representative and explained that I needed to remove myself as the payer on the account. The mortgage was in my parents' names, but my bank account had been auto-paying it for 6 years. I provided all the necessary information to disconnect my payment method. The representative confirmed the change would take effect immediately. She informed me that my parents would receive a notice in the mail, letting them know they needed to resume making payments themselves, starting with the next billing cycle in 3 weeks. I thanked her and hung up. Second action was the car loans. My parents had 2 vehicles, both with monthly payment plans. I called the first car loan company and removed my bank account from their automatic payment system. I did the same with the second car loan company. Both cars would be due for their monthly payments in about 3 weeks. Without my automatic payment, my parents would receive past due notices. I felt no guilt, only a strange sense of relief. Third was health insurance. I called the insurance company and explained I needed to cancel the policy that covered my parents. The representative asked if I wanted to wait until the end of the billing cycle. I said yes, give them until the end of the month. That gave them 30 days to find new coverage. The representative processed the cancellation and confirmed my parents would receive a notice. Fourth was utilities. I called the electric company, the gas company, the water company, and the internet service provider. My parents' accounts were in their names, but I had set up automatic payments from my bank account years ago when they first got behind on bills. I had each company transfer the payment responsibility back to the account holders. My parents would start receiving bills directly next cycle. They would need to set up their own payment methods. As I went through my bank statements looking for recurring charges, I found even more things I had forgotten about. Streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, Spotify Premium. All were under my account but used primarily by my parents based on the viewing history. I canceled every single subscription. My mother's cell phone was on my phone plan. It cost an extra $65 per month. I called my wireless provider and had her line removed from my account. She would need to get her own phone service now. I discovered I was still listed as the emergency contact and financial guarantor at their dentist office from years ago when I helped them with a billing issue. I called the dentist's office and removed myself from their records entirely. I found old receipts showing I had paid their homeowners association fees several times when they could not cover it. I notified the HOA that I was no longer responsible for any fees associated with their address. Then I remembered the credit card. Years ago, I had given my mother a credit card linked to my account for emergencies. The agreement was she would only use it for true emergencies. But looking at the recent statements, I saw charges at department stores, restaurants, coffee shops. She had been using it like her personal shopping card. I called the credit card company and canceled that card immediately. I added everything up. The total monthly support I was cutting off came to approximately $4,200. Over the course of a year, that was more than $50,000. Over 6 years, I had given them over $300,000. Money that could have been a house, money that could have been investments. money that could have been my own life. Tuesday afternoon, I received a call from my father. I looked at my phone screen and watched it ring. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I listened to the message. My father's voice sounded awkward and uncomfortable. He said, "Ahmad, your mother got a notice from the mortgage company today. It says there is a problem with the payment account. There seems to be some kind of mistake with the automatic payment. Can you call me back so we can sort this out, thanks?" No apology. No acknowledgement of what happened at the birthday party. No mention of my mother's words or my public humiliation. Just an assumption that this was a mistake. That, of course, I would not actually stop paying their mortgage. I deleted the message without calling back. I felt a small surge of satisfaction. Over the next 3 days, the calls and texts increased. My mother called. I had already blocked her number, so the call did not even ring through. My father called multiple times. I did not answer any of them. Each voicemail was similar. Confusion about the mortgage notice, then the car payment notice, then the insurance cancellation notice. His tone shifted from confused to concerned to slightly angry. Wednesday evening, Layla called. I answered because I did not want to cut off my sister. She was not part of this. Her voice was stressed when she said, "Ahmad, what are you doing? Mom and Dad are freaking out. They got notices from the mortgage company, the car loans, the insurance. They said you canceled everything." I calmly explained what I had done and why. I told her about every bill I had been paying for 6 years. I told her about the birthday party, the public humiliation, the disownment. I explained that if I was no longer their son, then I was no longer responsible for their lifestyle. Layla was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Ahmad, I understand you are hurt, but you cannot just abandon them. They are our parents." I replied, my voice steady and calm. "I did not abandon them, Layla. I was disowned. Your mother made it very clear I am not her son anymore. She said those words in front of 80 people. So I am simply no longer acting like a son. I am no longer financing people who do not consider me family." Layla tried to argue. She said they were just drunk, that emotions were high, that family does not give up on each other. I listened patiently. Then I told her I loved her and I hoped we could maintain our relationship, but this situation with our parents was not her business. It was between them and me. I said goodbye and hung up. I felt empowered, clear-minded, justified in my actions. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like I was in control of my own life and my own money. The guilt I expected to feel never came. Instead, I felt liberated. I did not hear from my parents directly for 2 weeks. Layla would text me occasional updates. She said our parents were scrambling to figure out their finances. My father had to go back to doing light construction work despite his bad knees and back. My mother was looking into part-time administrative jobs again. They had called other family members asking for loans to cover the mortgage until they could get back on their feet. Apparently, everyone else said no. No one else wanted to take on the burden I had been carrying alone for 6 years. I felt zero desire to reverse my decision, not even a flicker of guilt. Instead, I started using that extra $4,000 per month in ways I should have been using it all along. I opened a high-yield savings account and set up automatic transfers. I increased my retirement contributions. I started aggressively saving for a house down payment. Within 3 months, I had saved more than I had saved in the previous 3 years combined. By month 6, I had enough for a down payment on a condo. I bought a beautiful 2-bedroom place in a nice neighborhood in Austin. I had my own home at 28 years old, something I should have had years earlier. But the financial freedom was only part of it. I started therapy to process the relationship with my parents. I needed to understand why I had let this dynamic continue for so long. My therapist helped me realize I had been people-pleasing my entire life. I had equated my value as a person with my financial utility. I had believed that love meant sacrificing myself completely for others, even when they did not appreciate it. The therapist helped me understand the concept of boundaries, that saying no is not selfish, that self-preservation is necessary, that real love is mutual, not parasitic, that family should support each other, not drain each other. These concepts were revolutionary to me. I had never thought about relationships this way before. I started dating for the first time in years. I had neglected my personal life completely while I was busy being a human ATM for my parents. I went on dates. Some were awkward. Some were fun. I met interesting people. I learned what I wanted in a partner. I discovered I actually enjoyed getting to know someone without the constant background stress of financial obligation. I made new friends through a hiking group I joined. Every other Saturday, we would drive out to different trails around Austin. I used vacation days for the first time in years to travel. I went to Colorado and hiked in Rocky Mountain National Park. I went to Seattle and explored the city. I went to New Orleans and ate amazing food. I was actually living my life instead of just working to fund someone else's. I felt lighter, freer, more myself than I had felt in years. The weight of obligation had been crushing me without me even realizing it. I had been carrying my parents on my back for so long that I forgot what it felt like to walk upright. 6 months after the birthday party, I sat in my new condo one evening and reflected on everything that had happened. The sun was setting through my window, casting orange light across my living room. I thought about my parents and what they might be doing. I thought about the relationship we used to have, and the relationship we had now, which was no relationship at all. I understood now that love should not come with conditions. Real family supports each other mutually, not in a one-sided drain. My parents had confused my love with obligation. They had taken advantage of my kind nature and the guilt I felt about being more successful than they were. They had treated me like a resource instead of a person. The disownment was one of the most painful moments of my life, but it was also necessary. It forced me to stop sacrificing myself. It forced me to recognize that I was worth more than my bank account. It taught me that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you are supposed to love most, and that is the cruelest part. I learned that saying no is not selfish. It is self-preservation. That financial support without appreciation becomes exploitation. That you cannot set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. That boundaries are not walls, they are doors, and you get to decide who walks through. I still think about my parents sometimes. I wonder if they have learned anything from this. I wonder if they have any regrets about how they treated me. I wonder if my mother remembers what she said that night, or if the alcohol erased it from her memory, even though it is burned into mine forever. I have not reached out to them, and they have not reached out to me beyond those initial frantic calls about the canceled payments. Layla maintains contact with both sides. She respects my boundaries and does not try to force reconciliation. She tells me small updates when I ask, but she does not push. She is a good sister. I do not know if my parents and I will ever reconcile. Part of me hopes that one day they will understand what they did wrong, that they will realize how they treated me, that maybe they will apologize and we can build something new, something healthier. But another part of me has accepted that might never happen, and I have learned to be okay with that uncertainty. Because the most important lesson I learned from all of this is that I cannot control how other people treat me. I can only control how I respond. I cannot make my parents appreciate me. I cannot make them see my worth beyond my wallet. I cannot force them to love me the way I needed to be loved, but I can choose to love myself. I can choose to protect my peace. I can choose to walk away from relationships that harm me, even when those relationships are supposed to be sacred, even when they are family. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away. Sometimes the healthiest choice is to let go. Sometimes freedom costs everything, but it is worth it. I am okay now. Better than okay. I am thriving. I am building a life that is mine, not an extension of someone else's expectations. I am learning what it means to be happy, genuinely happy, not just dutiful. And that is something no amount of money could buy. So here is my question for all of you watching this. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt more like a resource than a person? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to walk away from family for your own well-being? Drop a comment below and share your story. You are not alone in this struggle. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about navigating difficult family dynamics. And share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who is struggling with the same feelings I had. Take care of yourselves.